NCAA tournament, March Madness. It puts the most pressure possible on everyone involved. One and done. How do coaches handle it? Are they any different here than during the regular season? I mean, look at this. There are so many ways to communicate effectively. Is one way better than another? Look at the movies we go see. The ones that model their behavior for real-life coaches to emulate.
To me, being perfect is not about that scoreboard out there. It's not about winning. It's about you and your relationship to yourself and your family and your friends.
Stop thinking. Let things happen and be the ball.
Being perfect is about being able to look your friends in the eye and know that you didn't let them down.
Wax on, wax off. Breathe in through nose, out the mouth.
Can you live in that moment as best you can with clear eyes, with joy in your heart? If you can do that, gentlemen, then you're perfect.
But how realistic is this?
I love you guys.
Of course, we've seen movies with a veritable how not to coach and inspire your players.
Mama's boy, but you're gonna cry. Come on, Mama's boy. Let's see you cry, come on. Squirt if you, come on, cry.
This is by far the worst team that has ever sat in this locker room.
Everybody into the shower! Anybody in this shower in 10 seconds gonna get fined $100!
If God wanted you up there, he would have miracled your ass up there by now, wouldn't he? Say yes, sir! Get your fat ass up there, pile!
Start counting. 5, 6, 7.
In 4, damn it! Look at me!
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3,
No.
3, 4.
Rushing or dragging?
Rushing.
So you do know the difference!
It's a macho thing, right? The only way to make your players tough is to be as tough as you possibly can. In their face, using anger, disgust, shame, blame, and every other difficult and negative form of communication you can think of. I'm preparing them for the real world. Otherwise, they'll be soft, coddled, unaccountable. But is it one or the other? Can it really be that if you're not doing this, if you're not displaying angry body language,
Why are you coming up the lane? Good luck playing after high school.
if you're not verbally haranguing your team often, then they're guaranteed to be soft? Let's look at the first round game between Michigan State and Bradley. Second seed versus a 15th seed. Should have been a blowout. Bradley gets hot in the first half and is actually winning at halftime. What kind of speech do you think Tom Izzo gave to his team? He seems to have a reputation of being fiery. 3 minutes into the second half, the Spartans go on a 10-0 run and are taking control of the game finally. But does this look like a coach of a team on a big run? Does this look like a guy whose opponent just had to take a timeout to staunch the bleeding? Why is he out of control like this? And he's ripping into a 19-year-old freshman who's never been in the tournament before, has no idea what to expect. So let's look at the footage and see if we can decipher what Coach Izzo was talking about.
You think there was one thing that would make me that angry? You don't know me very well. There was a bunch of things, and hey, he's playing a lot of minutes too. He's tired too. But when you're a freshman now at this time of year, you don't make mental mistakes on things that when we're telling a guy which way he goes or not running back or, there were some things Aaron didn't do a very good job of.
First off, it was good he acknowledged he was so angry. And he said it's not the first time Henry has made this mistake, which led him to believe he needed to use an extreme way to get through. Izzo said Henry was making mental mistakes on which way he was going. To me, this sounds like a defensive thing, not rotating properly or going the wrong way around a screen. Then he said Henry was not running back. Luckily, we have the footage. We can all look at this frame by frame to find the evidence he's talking about. We've got to start with the second half, since it wouldn't make sense that Izzo saved up his fury and didn't unleash it on Henry at halftime. I mean, it shouldn't be that hard to find these egregious mistakes that made Izzo go crazy, right? Right? Let's see. He does a good job getting around the screen and pressuring the ball. He moves in the direction of the ball nicely, and the shot is missed under heavy pressure. And he certainly fills the wing back down the court quickly. All good stuff. A double pump floater misses, and Henry gets back quickly. Because Winston ended up on the ground, they're outnumbered on the weak side. So Henry does the correct thing, leaves his man to close out to the ball. He even shows good hustle to get to the open shooter in the corner. That's covered by a teammate, but they give up a drive and an open mid-range shot. Is this Henry's fault? No. Henry sprints back down the floor, and they run the same set they ran for much of the game, a pick and roll on the left side with a pin down by Henry on the right. He sets a pretty good screen, but this is a slow release and it's blocked. Henry sees the turnover happening and turns to get back down the floor, but it would not have mattered one bit as the ball is fired down court and is dunked within 3 seconds. Now, Izzo is up off the bench, and the lead is 5 for Bradley. They finally get into some offense and kick it to Henry in the corner with a much smaller defender on him. He backs him down, nice spin move that draws 2 defenders, then throws a beautiful skip pass that gets them a look in the corner and earns him a nice hockey assist. Watch Henry running back down court. He's communicating for someone to get his man since he was cross-matched on the shot. He pursues well and is able to switch back onto his man on the handoff. He sees man and ball, is in good position, takes away the cut into the lane with some contact, hustles to the roll man on the switch, and does a nice job to take away the duck-in down low. Now here's an interesting interaction where Goins wants Henry to switch back, but at this moment, the ball is being driven to the middle and Henry has to hold his position. When Henry's man gets the ball back, he closes out, but only then realizes what Goins was doing. There was no need for Goins to have called Henry to switch off the bigger man while he's outside the three-point line. Even still, Henry shows effort to get out to the shooter and gets in the area on the release, and the shot misses. Henry gets back down the court on his customary left side, catches the skip pass and shows great vision and puts the ball perfectly where only his teammate can catch it for the layup and a terrific assist. Henry is playing great for them right now, and the team is showing signs of life. On the made bucket, they have time to get back and pick up their men. There's a split second of confusion finding his man, but Henry gets there in time. Here's a little bit more confusion, with Henry holding out his hands looking for some sort of call. To me, it looks like he wants to know if they're switching everything or fighting through screens. He quickly gets around this one well. Here's where the defense gets a little complicated. Watch Tillman turn around and let his man go through the lane. This looks to me like they wanted to switch off the guard when he drives, but it puts a lot of pressure on the other defenders to rotate properly. Now, it seems like picking up Van Bree would be Henry's assignment, but he sees a wide open player in the corner. And for a second, Goins was in position to simply stay on his man. It got a decent look, but Tillman was there to jump out and contest the shot into a miss. Was this Henry's screw up? Maybe, but there was a distinct lack of communication on what appears to be a pretty complicated version of team defense. Nothing involving Henry happens on the offensive end, and Cassius Winston isos for a step-back three to take the lead. The bench is clearly in a positive frame of mind, and the team on the floor is feeding off of the energy. Henry is in good defensive position, waiting for the action to come his way. This pick and roll seemed to be an automatic switch based on how Goins jumped out to pick up the ball. And because the switch blew up the attack, it leads to the pass that gets deflected and stolen and right into a fast break layup. The 5-point lead represents their biggest of the night. The bench is ready to explode in joy, but here it comes. The finger pointing, the disgust on his face, the anger. I see utter confusion on Henry's face, and quite honestly, I don't blame him. We just went through the footage. Do you see anything that went so wrong it merited this kind of reaction? I posted this clip on Twitter, and of course it went viral. Really viral. Like around the world and back again, twice viral. One thing I want to make clear. I lament deeply the tone of the original tweet. It was a visceral reaction to something I still can't understand. But it sparked the right discussion about coaching and communication methods. Everybody seemed to weigh in. This was the tweet that kicked it off. Miles played for Coach Izzo at Michigan State and said what so many people did who disagree with my original sentiment. Turns out there's a huge subset of athletes in various sports that believe they need this type of motivation to play their best. It's how it's been done for 100 years. My coach did this to me, so I need to do it to my players. I went through it. It toughened me up. So you need to go through it too. I spoke to KJ Brent of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers about his reaction.
When I first saw it, I kind of chuckled because I've been through it. I figured what I saw, like he probably did something that they've been coached not to do or in a crucial time in the game, and Izzo just kind of burst. He just couldn't help his emotions, just kind of burst, which, it happens all the time. It happens in every sport all over the world. So I didn't really think much of it. I saw a lot of comments underneath your post that said, I guess some of that coaching kind of made them who they are, and if I were to get ripped like that, most likely you're not going to make that mistake again, or maybe once more, but you're not going to make that many more times again because of that feeling you get when you do get ripped like that. You don't want to, in front of your peers, in front of your teammates, you don't want to let your teammates down, first of all. You don't want to let your coach down. You don't want to do something to make your coach feel like that.
So, but would you say that what the motivation from that would then be sort of fear of not doing that again? Is that sort of the mind space you're in?
It's not fear. It's more of like, I look at it like most of the coaches, they don't want to do that. Like I said, most of the coaches that do want to do that and do that consistently, they don't last. Those guys are the guys that get fired and they're not winning because none of their team trust them. They don't have any sense of value because they're always getting ripped. It's a part of sports. It's always been a part of sports, and I don't know if you can necessarily take it away from sports.
So KJ makes a good point. This kind of behavior happens all the time. I asked one of the best basketball coaches I know, Chris Oliver at the University of Windsor, how we got to this point that so many people want to defend how Coach Izzo interacted with Aaron Henry.
This portrayal of a coach as being this certain type of figure that should be coaching hard, that should be, what does hard mean, by the way? Like, I always want it to be hard for my players. I always want there to be challenge for my players, but that doesn't mean I'm aggressive to my players. That doesn't mean I treat them poorly. I want it to be challenging. I want it to be difficult. And to me, that's hard coaching. And this other notion of hard coaching is probably, again, a fallacy that's portrayed through media and through the glorification of a coach as a certain type of, this hard-nosed figure that really yells at his players and, discipline and control and all this other stuff. And I think what we really, really mean in this case is that, again, it's the opposite.
One of my main arguments against the in-your-face, out-of-control coaching style is that science has proven it's not the best method. Well, that triggered a lot of people too. So I reached out to a few experts in the field to discuss what recent research has shown us.
Well, you probably, if you think about it, we've all been in these situations. So reflecting back to our own lives is the external influences can impact on our emotional state. Our emotional state will impact on the way we make choices, the way we think, And what we can do, instead of being in the present, we can start the negative experience we just had. We're hanging on that.
What we know from a player's perspective is the player wants to know, does the coach care about me? Can I trust that coach? And does that coach make me better? So if that foundation is really strong, the player can put up with a lot of intense emotion.
I want to make something clear here. I'm not saying you can't use passion and force to communicate as a coach. In fact, they're two of the most vital tools you need to be effective. What I responded to was the out-of-control anger and disgust, both verbally and with body language. It's precisely because it was a knockout game that you can't afford to disrupt the player's emotional equilibrium for 10 minutes, causing him to play less than his best. After all, isn't that the role of the coach during a game? To get the very best out of each player? After the game, Henry insisted it was no big deal.
It's just part of basketball. He's gonna yell. Don't make it bigger than what it is. He's just coaching, trying to get the best out of me. So I can't be mad at him for that. Maybe I shouldn't be playing bad or doing what I'm not supposed to be doing on the court, and I wouldn't get that. So I was raised like that. My parents got on me like that. They from that generation. So I got the worst of it physically from them though. So I've gotten worse from them, but I was prepared for it. I've been raised like that the past 18 years. So whatever he throws at me, I think I can handle.
If parents want to use an overly aggressive style to discipline their kids in their own home, that's completely okay with me. The difference is that the kid doesn't have to sink 2 free throws with no time on the clock in front of 20,000 screaming fans immediately afterwards. I spoke with Mark Bennett, a former British commando who has almost 3 decades of experience training coaches at every level, including professional and Olympic teams. Mind you, he hadn't seen the footage of the game immediately after the timeout.
If you scan the behavior of that player immediately afterwards, I'd be surprised if he was playing to his best. But you'll rarely get a open, fired up, driving with confidence athlete after that type of interaction in those moments. There's normally a short-term regression. My experience is that actually doesn't have the effect you want. You get the point across that they're not happy, but generally the player doesn't go out and go, right, I've got this, I'm nailing this, I'm now driving it with no fear. Actually, you're putting doubt or fear into the individual.
So let's go through the footage and see how accurate Mark was in his assessment. On this pick and roll to his left, he rushed the pass and it was off by a few inches. And you can see a dazed look on his face. Certainly not the expression of a confident young player ready to take on the world. A couple of plays later, he throws a high-low pass away and again is visibly confused, frustrated, not on the same page with his teammates, and Izzo yells something at him, as does his teammate. The game continues. It's a real dogfight, and Henry doesn't have much of an impact either way for a long time. With under 3 minutes to go, they run that familiar pick and roll on the left side with Henry pinning down on the right, forcing a mismatch on the switch. And they let him go to work down low with a big height advantage. No double team comes, and he hits a nice up and under with the right hand, giving them some added separation. Next time down, same play, and again Bradley switches on the pin down. Henry starts to go to work and is fouled. He hits the 2 free throws, and Michigan State wins the game going away. It's clear to me that the outburst by Izzo directly affected Henry's play for several minutes until Henry could engage his own coping mechanisms and return to an emotional state that would allow him to perform. I talked to Chris Oliver, head coach at Windsor University and one of the best coaches I've encountered, to ask his opinion on the effect Izzo had on Henry's play down the stretch.
And you see people saying, oh, well, look, Aaron Henry played better because of this. Well, that's a really dangerous thing to say, that there was this cause and effect from this behavior that led to him playing better. And if that was the case, why aren't we all doing this? Why aren't we all doing this every single second? Why aren't we all acting this way towards our players? Because, oh, look, it makes them play better. And we know that's not the case. Anyone who's coached, including Coach Izzo, knows that it's not that simple cause and effect, that you do something and your players do it better.
And then anytime I see a thing like that, I really try to think of the big picture and the trickle-down fallout from all of that. And in what I do, what I don't want is a bunch of high school or AAU coaches thinking that that's the tool that they should go to when a kid isn't playing well.
What frustrated me the most with this whole discussion on Coach Izzo is how many people assume that the absence of out-of-control anger and disgust equates to soft and coddled and unaccountable. It's as if there's only two kinds of leadership, aggressively militaristic or soft and wimpy.
And that's not a soft thing. That's just recognizing in this moment you can be tight and sharp and hard, but firm, fair and friendly in that manner, not softy. But your whole intent is that Stephen Covey begin with the end in mind. For this athlete, what I need to do is press his button to make him realize and play the best he can be.
What's exciting about the evolution of coaching is that we now have science to inform us and to help us improve the way we communicate and motivate to get the absolute best out of our players, without losing any of the toughness people are looking for. Chris Johnson has worked with professional teams and is an expert in the field of decision science and cognitive function in elite performers.
There are a lot of counterintuitive notions with this. And so, again, we used to think that being calm and cool all the time was the best. And what we're starting to find out is emotions, when they're used, tend to facilitate the best performance. Not only is it just about passion and intensity, what we would call energy and edge. If you have energy and edge, but you don't have a really strong relationship, not transactional, not just spending time around each other practicing, but two people who really know each other, who have shed blood, sweat, and tears together, who trust each other, and that there's no shortcuts. You can't hack that kind of relationship. When you have that foundation and you put on top high expectations and intensity, that is fertile ground for some elite performance.
So Chris's point might speak to someone like Brad Stevens or Fred Hoiberg, two coaches who don't tend to display a lot of emotion. And certain coaches seem to have an allergy to praise, even though the science tells us that there are real benefits to positive coaching. That's not to say there's an absence of the negative. So I brought in Ray Lokar, a longtime national speaker for the Positive Coaching Alliance and director of GoldStandardCoaching.com, to explain why.
I mean, I think that research started Coach Wooden's last year at UCLA. He was followed by two educational psychologists, Tharp and Gallimore, and I refer to this all the time. And they did a paper called What a Coach Can Teach a Teacher. And they followed him and cataloged 2,500 different acts of coaching and put it into percentage. How much was praise, how much was scolding, how much was instruction or hustles. And it began then. A couple of people researched Pat Summitt with a similar study, some people from Arizona State. They followed Jerry Tarkanian one year at Fresno State. And there's some interesting things, Nick, that I think are important to point out. As you would expect, Coach Wooden instructed a lot. About 75% of his actions contain some information. But he only praised his kids about the same amount as he scolded them. Both about 7% of his coaching actions were praises and scolds. Now, Pat Summitt was twice as much praise as she was scolds. And Coach Tarkanian was more like Coach Summitt. He praised his kids twice as much. So I had an opportunity to work some of Coach's last basketball camps, Coach Wooden's last basketball camps. And I asked him about that research because it was a paper that I did early in college. And I said, Coach, you didn't praise your players very much. And he said this over breakfast that I'll never forget. He said, when you take the time to teach your boys, there's an implied belief that they can achieve, and that belief is praise in itself. So Coach Wooden felt that instruction was a positive teaching method, and that was in essence praise. So when you take all of his acts of instruction and add it with his praise, he's 5-to-1, just like all the research says. And, you know, Summitt and Tarkanian are kind of sort of the same when you add everything together, which I think is interesting.
So in the end, where has this gotten all of us? I'd like to think we made a good point about the power of coaching. Of course, there are many ways to communicate, and it's vital to be who you are as a person. But it wasn't that long ago where most coaches in the country swore they'd never let their players shoot a jump shot. and those coaches had won a lot of games and championships. The point is that we're constantly evolving, striving to learn more and improve. Coach Izzo is a great coach, and his record speaks for itself as he embarks on an 8th Final Four. He was asked later about what he said to his team at halftime to get them to play better, and his response was telling.
Imagine some challenging went on.
No. We went in the halftime. We had a love fest. We all kind of gathered around. We hugged each other and said, listen, it's okay, guys, that we got out-rebounded by a smaller team. It's okay, but if we could find a way to do a little better job, it would probably help us win. And that's what we did, to be honest with you.
Even though he was clearly annoyed and sarcastic, it said to me that he heard what I was saying, not directly from me, but from the discussion that bubbled out all over the internet and media immediately after the game. With 5 minutes to go, Henry missed an open dunk in a crucial moment, and Coach Izzo did not go insane like Reggie Miller thought he would.
This is really going to send Izzo over the top here.
This displayed emotional intelligence on Izzo's part to know it would be too risky to get Henry out of sorts this late in the game, and there seemed to me a distinct absence of any further tirades in subsequent games. And you know what? The team just took off, playing its best ball of the season. And even better, Aaron Henry had the best game of his life the next week. Just look at him. His smile is electric. His body language is through the roof. He's not playing well because Izzo lit into him 7 days before this. He's playing above his head because he has joy, confidence, and rhythm. Look at the difference between the first round and here. This is the special sauce I've been talking about. This is what all coaches should strive for. Isn't that why we coach? If the science tells us the key to unlocking the very best performance is playing in a positive state of mind, why wouldn't we try to access that every single game? The more coaches embrace this philosophy, the better their players will be, and the game itself will elevate to levels we've never imagined. I hope you enjoyed this video and it made sense to you as a coach, a player, and a fan. Please give us a thumbs up and comment down below. Plus, I'm offering you a free video with more insights into the way the game is played that will improve your playing and your coaching. Make sure to check back here since I'll have a range of different free videos moving forward and we'll be swapping out links. Click here to watch some other videos I recently produced on both the NBA and March Madness. And hit that subscribe button and adjust your settings so you'll be notified immediately as soon as a new video drops. Thanks for joining me today, and don't forget, sports fans, at BBallBreakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in?